It is no secret that Aidan Hutchinson is a favorite among recent mock drafts. It's March. It's almost pretty much April by now. And ever since the Jaguars tagged Cam Robinson, before the Jaguars tagged Cam Robinson, every mock draft was Evan Neal to the Jaguars. Got to protect Trevor Lawrence. Ever since they tagged Cam, they thought the Jaguars could spend their number one overall pick on a player that could impact the team the most, the quickest. And most have determined that player to be Aidan Hutchinson. I am not a college prospect analyst. I have no clue how to do that. So I talked to one, and this is Austin Gayle. He is the director of content at Pro Football Focus. They are doing a whole podcast series. I think he said it's a 4-part podcast series on Aidan Hutchinson. And like Aidan went to Cincinnati. I think that's the headquarters of PFF. Aidan and his family actually went to Cincinnati. They had a deep dive with him on his life, what makes him tick. They even talked to a bunch of NFL analysts. I saw the trailer for this podcast. I think they talked to like Adam Schefter, Todd McShay, all the maybe Daniel Jeremiah, all the analysts for the draft and NFL media in general, to just get the deepest you can get on a player. And I think this is it. So this podcast is gonna be it's gonna be on YouTube and it's gonna be on Apple Podcasts. Just search Hutch, Hutch. So I'm gonna talk to Austin, see what his favorite part of meeting and talking to Aidan was, and ask him how he fits with the Jaguars, if he thinks the Jaguars are going to go with Aidan Hutchinson, and if they do, what can we expect from him year one, and how does he fit the Jaguar system? So let's talk to him now. All right, Austin, thank you for joining me. You are a director of content at Pro Football Focus, and are you co-host at Tailgate, the Tailgate
podcast? I am a co-host at Tailgate, that's right.
And what's your involvement with this Aidan Hutchinson podcast?
So I am the co-host on that too with Aidan. So it's Aidan and I doing a 4-part podcast series that's scheduled to come out in April 2022.
Okay, so it's a 4-part podcast series. What do you guys get into?
Well, just his life. It's like literally kind of just telling his story. I sit down with him, his mom, a lot of draft analysts, media, Jim Harbaugh, some of the coaches and stuff like that. It's like this bigger piece on just kind of like his story and all that stuff, which it's been really cool to record. It's been fun.
Like, so before you did this with him, if you were mocking a draft or if you were a Jags fan, who would you have pinned for the Jaguars at 1? Would it still have been him?
Yeah, I think so. He's my number 1 player in the draft. I feel really good about that. I think it's a conversation between the offensive tackles, whether that's Evan Neal and Ekwonu or Aidan Hutchinson and probably Kayvon Thibodeau, right? I think maybe there's some opportunity around Trayvon Walker with his ascent, but if I had to pick, I would pick Aidan Hutchinson.
What is behind the Trayvon Walker ascent like recently? What do you think? Because it's
a lot of like athleticism, right? I mean, he's like a rare height, weight, speed guy, right? And I think there's reasons to buy into like why he hasn't developed as a pass rushing talent from a production standpoint. It's just because like the role and like what they asked him to do at Georgia really did like limit like his opportunities to go one-on-one with tackles off the edge and stuff like that. So I do think he ultimately is a top 10 player.
So in like December, was it like between Aidan and Thibodeau?
Yeah, and probably Evan Neal, like Ekwonu in that range.
Yeah. What's the difference between Hutchinson and Thibodeau?
I think the bigger thing is that Hutchinson, better production in a better conference, I think is one of the clear differences, right? I think Kayvon Thibodeau is a good athlete. I think Aidan Hutchinson's a good athlete. I don't buy into the Aidan Hutchinson's character versus Kayvon Thibodeau's character stuff. I think the bigger differences are that Aidan was wildly productive in the Big Ten against legit competition in his final year. And you didn't ever see that elite level production from Kayvon Thibodeau. And a lot of that too is like how they game planned against him and all that stuff. And when you look at it purely from a traits perspective, he's very close to what Aidan Hutchinson offers. I think you just check a lot of boxes with Aidan, right? Size, athleticism, measurables, intangibles, production, character, motor, all these things I think are really, really high level, not just checking boxes, but high level to a point where like you feel really confident in his floor in the NFL. And also you feel really confident in what you're projecting him to be, right? I think you know what you're getting with Aidan Hutchinson. You're not asking him to be a different player. If anything, you're asking him to be the same exact player as he is right now in the NFL.
What would you say his comparable, if you were to compare him to someone?
It's tough. I think that the Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa comparisons, I don't think you see him turn the corner like they do. Like they finish plays a lot more because of like that, just that insane bend that they do have. I don't think you see that with Aidan Hutchinson. That's not to say he's not bendy. He's just not like Bosa, Nick Bosa level of bendy. I think it's better to comp him to like Patrick Kearney coming out of former Atlanta Falcons defensive end, Kyle Vanden Bosch, like these bigger body defensive ends, right? Like these bigger body defensive ends, but with like really good athleticism that can actually play on the edge.
So the Jags are probably going to run a 3-4 this season, mostly. So do you see him as one of the big ends, or is he going to be standing up like opposite Josh Allen?
I think he could stand up opposite of Josh Allen. I think talking to his agent, Mike McCartney, who's been doing this for a long time, he said that, he's advocating that he does, get his hand out of the ground and play that kind of stand up outside linebacker position. But he could play both, right? I think he's versatile. He could play, hand in the ground defensive end as well.
Are you guys just doing this podcast with Hutchinson, or do you got other players that I guess a lot of time goes into it, so you probably don't have time to do this with other players.
Just Hutchinson this year, 4-part podcast series, going to be about 4 to 5 hours of content. And then beyond that, I think next year plan will be to, potentially leverage something similar into multiple players, right? We're still like working through a lot of that stuff though. It's kind of see how this performs and see what, how the audience takes to it and really just hit a home run with just the access that we have to Hutchinson and his family and all this stuff.
Did you have to go to his hometown for this?
We did not go to his hometown. He came to Cincinnati for this. We talked to his family too. They came out to Cincinnati. In terms of other interviews that we've done for this, I think it's been over 50 now. It's been Zoom, a lot of Zoom interviews.
The Jaguars signed Arden Key today from the 49ers. I don't think that is as big of an indicator as what they'll do in the draft as when they like tag Cam Robinson. Do you have any feel? I know if you were the Jaguars, you would take Hutchinson, but do you have any feeling of where they're going to go with that pick?
I think they're leaning Aidan Hutchinson. I think that's ultimately where they go. I don't think the Arden Key signing pushes away from that. I think if anything, they're likely to probably trade or move on from Kayvon Chason, who has not panned out as a first-round pick for them. I think that's where my thought process is. But I still think offensive tackle is in play, even with franchise tagging Cam Robinson. I don't think it's crazy for them to consider another edge, right? Like if they like Trayvon Walker over Aidan Hutchinson, it's not like insane, right? I don't think Aidan Hutchinson is the one who's being consistently mocked number one overall and my pick for number one among others, but like, it's not like this monster gap, right? There's not a monster gap between Aidan Hutchinson, Walker, and Thibodeau, in my opinion. I think all of those guys, and even Karlaftis, the Purdue defensive end, all those guys are top 15 players, right? So it's not like other classes where like this clear-cut number one overall player. And I think a lot of that's because it's the first time in a while that's not a quarterback, right? And you go back to the Myles Garrett draft. I mean, that guy was one of one in terms of athleticism, size, production coming out of Texas A&M, to where like it was similar to the Clowney pick where like everyone knew who that top guy would be.
What was your favorite part of the interviewing or talking to his family, him?
Yeah. I think the best part was sitting down with him. Honestly, he's a super, super cool guy. And I think a lot of the commitment that, and like the hard work and the high effort stuff, I think a lot of it is like real, right? I think talking to as many people as I did, it's hard to not come away with this take that like so much of this work ethic and character and all this stuff is real because everyone's saying the same thing, right? He's the same guy since he was competing in dance with his sisters at like 5 years old to what he's doing now, right? He journals every single day, writing down what he wants to do with his life and his goals and all this stuff. He works out a ton and like he takes his diet super seriously. He went to the doctors and found out if he stopped eating gluten, it could improve certain things by a handful of percentage points. And he's like, okay, I'm done with gluten. Like he is willing to do whatever it takes at any point, at any time to be the best. And that is not for show, right? He does it for him because he knows and is really smart and aware that it's, you have one body, right? You have one body, and when you are going to be in the NFL, you need to have like a top 0.0005% body to like be good and to be successful. And I think he buys into that pretty well.
It's funny. I was watching, or I forced myself to watch the Pivot podcast last night because they had Jalen Ramsey on. It's very hard to watch still, Jalen Ramsey doing anything. I actually couldn't watch the post Super Bowl celebrations just because it's still tough. But Jalen is articulate in the same way with his body and mind. And I love Josh Allen, but I would love to have another defensive player like that I can buy a jersey again. I've put jersey buying on pause for now. If the Jaguars took Kyle Hamilton, how crazy would that be?
I think that would be pretty shocking, right? It's a position that's low on the positional value chart. It's also one where like the athletic testing for him has not come back well. Some people not buying him as even the number one safety in this class. I think he's in a little bit of a fall situation right now because of the athletic testing. Some people going back to the tape and maybe disagreeing with that he's versatile and all that stuff. I think it's more likely that he falls outside the top 10 than he is. Number one overall.
Because people are talking, I guess, how do you value tape versus like pro day and combine?
Tape is objectively more important. And on tape, Kyle Hamilton's tape grade is up there with the best in this class, right? You could argue he's a top 5 player in this class, top 3 player in this class. I think the athletic testing is 100% concerning though, right? And you have to factor that in. And I do think his athletic testing is very similar to what Justin Simmons is. And Justin Simmons ran a 4.61 coming out and he went to the second round and all that stuff. Now he's one of the better deep safeties in the NFL, right? I think there's overreactions because you bill him as this top 3, top 5 player, and then he doesn't run a low 4.3 and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I could never draft, Kyle Hamilton as high as people think.
What would be your projection for Hutchinson year one? I guess you have to think about the team that he's going to be on. So if he was on the Jags, what would be your projection?
He's an 8+ sack type of player, right? I think he immediately impacts the game as a pass rusher. I think he also is a plus run defender. I would be surprised if he had under a 75.0 run defense grade in year one. Like he is going to be very good early on. Will he ever be Von Miller, Khalil Mack, these guys that are like perennial top 3, top 4 players as pass rushers? Probably not. Like I don't think he ever scratches that ceiling, but he could. I think there's a really good chance that he can, because you tell that to him, he'll say, I'll show you what, I'll write down in my permit right now, and I'm going to be a different player in a couple of years.
Well, you should say that to him so he writes that down just in case.
I'll get on it.
Yeah. Who's that? In terms of prospects, who would you compare him to? Would it be the same guys that you told me for like league comparisons?
I think it's tough. I'm trying to think of like recent players where there's like because it's just a rare build, right? 6'7", 260, 265.
He's 6'7".
He's 6'6" and like 5'8". Yeah. So he's almost 6'7", 260, 265, sub 7.3 cone. Like if you actually like look from an athletic testing standpoint, his biggest comparison is the Bosa brothers. Like the Bosa brothers are very, very similar. Sam Hubbard also comes up as a comparison, but you think 6'6" and 5'8", 260 pounds, 4.7 40-yard dash, 36-inch vertical, 6'7" 3.3 cone. And then you look at Joey Bosa, 6'5", 269, 4.86 40-yard dash slower, 32-inch vertical jump shorter, 120 broad, a little bit the same, 6'8", 9.3 cone, which isn't even as good as Aidan Hutchinson, but still 93rd percentile, right? So I think that is what shows up. That is what shows up with Aidan Hutchinson. Is like this Joey Bosa comparison is very much legit. Does he have, again, the bend is like something that you need, like this ankle flexion is so important to bending the edge and finishing sacks and winning early in the snap. I still think that Aidan can like positively affect the pass rusher other ways. I also think there's rightful concerns with Aidan's arm length. 32.5-inch arms is not great, or 32 1/8 is only 7th percentile for the position. You compare him to Bosa. Bosa's got 2-inch longer arms, right? And that shows up in his tape, and I think that will push him. He needs to get past that, right? And he did that obviously at Michigan.
Who's the highest rated player defensive lineman that PFF has ever rated coming out of the draft, if you can think of?
It probably is Joey or Nick Bosa.
Oh, really? Why did Nick, if you can remember, and I don't really remember, why did Nick Bosa fall in the draft.
Injury, right? He had really bad hamstring injury coming out. And I think a lot of people were concerned, like, if he's healthy, he's the best. If he's not healthy, probably can't make this work. And I will say this, for as long as Nick Bosa is healthy, he's a top 3, top 5 edge player in the NFL.
All right, weird question just to end it. Actually, it's not a weird question. Pretty good question. If, and this is totally off topic, your life depended on it, you had to hit an MLB pitch and get it into play, or return a pro tennis player serve.
Oh my gosh.
Or I should stop there, but there's one more. Or complete an NFL pass, and it has to be beyond the line of scrimmage. In your life dependent, which one would you choose?
I think it's obvious. I would complete an NFL pass. Now, I'm not saying I'm good at any of those. There's a 0% chance I could even put an MLB pitch into the field of play. And then, like, return a tennis serve. That's another one where it's just like, at least with an NFL pass, like, there's like some dependency on the receiver, right? And like, if I throw to, like, you know, if I
just like, hey, Mike Evans out there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Someone's got to be out there. I think completing an NFL pass, I feel more confident in than ever hitting an MLB ball or a tennis pitch or tennis serve.
And I play tennis, and I get aced by my competition that are on my level. So I'm like, there's no way. So it has to be NFL pass just by process of elimination. I
agree. I don't think I'd be that good at that either.
What if it was the 2021 Jaguars receiving core?
I would struggle, but we'd make it work. I think we'd make it work. But this gets a little crosser. I'm going to try and, you know, I think even just like a little, I don't know. It'd be tough. I'd find a way though.
Marvin Jones out there somewhere. What do you guys think about Christian Kirk?
It's a lot of money for a receiver that I think could be a top 10 slot receiver, right? I think he could be a top 10 slot receiver in the NFL. I think
so. We still need a receiver.
Yeah, you still need an outside receiver. Like, he's not your alpha one. Like, if you paid him all that money to be an outside receiver, I think you're going to struggle. I think he needs to stay in the slot. I think he can have production there. It's a lot of money, again, to pay a fringe top 10 slot receiver, but I think he can be a top 10 slot receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, 30. Who do you think is going to be there at 33? I think we could trade up, but you have any favorites like that are not the obvious ones that could be top of round 2 that I should write down? I
think throw me into some of the bigger receivers. South Alabama's Jalen Tolbert, Christian Watson, North Dakota State, George Pickens at Georgia, Justin Ross at Clemson. Those are guys that, like, legitimately can play outside receiver in the NFL that could be available to them at 33. Some people will like Sky Moore or Jahan Dotson, but that's just another small receiver, right? And I don't think they should be chasing that necessarily. I think they need to go get a big bodied guy at 33. And I think there'll be a handful of them available then.
All right. Good to hear. The podcast comes out. Do you have like an official date for the podcast, or is it just mid-April? Yeah, I saw you guys just created a brand, like a whole new just podcast called Hutch. So that's pretty cool and easy to find. Is it going to be YouTube?
It'll be on YouTube and wherever you find it.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So you guys did a video interview. That's cool. All right. Well, thank you for joining. And then I'll give you a proper close at the end after we're done here. Bro, okay. I got to like interject here because what you're about to see is like the most cringiest. I don't know what my issue is when I'm talking on Zoom. Like, if we've done interviews here in our studio where the people are actually here, but when it comes to Zoom, I am so awkward. It sucks. So I ended this in the most awkward fashion ever, and I am still cringing about it. What I said, it was like 30 minutes. I had dinner. It was like 30 minutes ago now. I said, talk to you. Oh, I thanked him. I said, thanks for coming on. Talk to you. And then when I said talk to you, I was like, am I going to say later? What do you mean talk to you later? And like normal person would say talk to you later. Even if you know you're not going to talk to the person. Like, he doesn't follow me on Twitter. The only DM exchange we had was me asking him to come on the channel. And a normal person would just say talk to you later. You know you're not going to talk to him. But I'm so awkward that I said talk to you. And then I'm like, am I going to say later? Because I'm not going to talk to him later. So I'm like, talk to you never. And I said, I think I said just kidding. I can't remember. I'm sure I have to watch this back. This would be so bad. And I said, talk to you never. Who says that? It makes him think like, what the fuck? And then I said, just kidding, I think. And I said, see you in the DMs. No, I'm not. When is he going to want to DM me? And what am I going to do? Send him this video when it's done? Like, hey, check out your interview. Like, PFF does well on its own. He doesn't care how his interview on Dunn and Drew's YouTube channel went. Oh, guys, I am cringing hard. So I apologize with what you're about to see. So I think I'm going to play it. I think I'm going to play it right now.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah. I'll talk to you probably never. Just kidding. But I'll let you DMs.
Sweet. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Talk to you later. Oh, fuck. That was so awkward. Fuck. God damn it.